Hello, hello. Welcome to the Awakening Circle, our live this Thursday. We are doing a little bit of a pivot. So if you got the email that went out or the reminders, I was going to be on something else. And because of what has been coming up the last 2 days with clients and everything, I just realized that this is probably the topic that I really need to talk about. Sometimes we have to pivot from the plan and work with what's happening in live time. So that's what I want us to chat about today. And it's going to be about forgiveness and the truth of it and why it's so freaking important. Most of us get it intellectually, but bringing it into our bodies, bringing it into our heart, being able to actually take it into action, that becomes the hard part. I'm just going to make sure that we're all good for our... Oh, perfect. See, as soon as I said hello, I could start seeing them. Hello, Denise. Okay, beautiful. I can see. So give me a hello. Let me know that you're here when you come in. We've heard it a million times, and I just wrote this because this was an important part of it, that forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about us. And yes, it is freaking annoying. And today we're going to be talking about forgiveness, not as that fluffy concept, but as the practical way to stop the old wounds from running our life. And so, when we take a look like what forgiveness is not, and a lot of the times, you might even think there's nothing to forgive. Like, oh, this one's not a big deal for me. I don't forgive anybody. If you have any resentment, any anger, irritation, frustration, those are all defensive emotions. So if we're feeling those emotions, if we have vulnerability, insecurity, unworthiness, those would all be ones that come in. Anytime where we could say, that we've been a victim of something, that would be a place we could come into. If we don't love the victim language, which was my trigger, it could be the survivor language. Or do you consider yourself a survivor? And all those things create an identity. And within that identity, if we forgive it and let it go, what does that mean for us? Well, then who am I? If I'm not a survivor, who am I? And for me, it took years for me to work through this one piece was when my husband said to me, I'm so excited for you. You are finally going to get to stop surviving and start thriving. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, this is who I am. It's my warrior. And I was really terrified. And I read a lot of books, Goddess Warrior Handbook, all sorts of things, just trying to figure out like, how do I move through this? And so what forgiveness is it's not letting somebody off the hook. So one of the things we do is once we figure out like, oh, do I have something that I need to forgive for? And often we'll become aware of it when it's triggered. And so something will bump into us and it'll bump into the wound. And then all of a sudden we're triggered. We're feeling these emotions come up. We get a flood. We're offended. We're hurt. We're upset. We're angry. Something will arise. And it's because somebody bumped into something within us. And that's the moment that we know we have something we need to let go of. Forgiveness is not letting them off the hook. It's not excusing poor behavior. So we are not saying, to forgive somebody, to let it go, that we're excusing it. We're saying it happened. You can't change that. And you're not going to carry that wound inside you anymore. And so that's really what we're talking about. It's not saying that what happened's okay. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. And this is a big one because a lot of the times we think the moment that I say, I'm letting this go, I'm forgiving the past, I'm releasing this, now I have to be back in a relationship with that person. No, if a person is dysfunctional and they're abusive, we do not need to be back in a relationship with them. Even if they've done their work, we don't have to go back into a relationship with them. We can say, I'm super excited. I wish you peace. That's the end of it. We don't have to be in the same world, the same circles with them anymore. And forgiveness doesn't require the other person's participation. So we are not needing to know why they did it. It doesn't mean that they have to feel regret. It's not any of that. Because if you're me, then you have had people in your life that are incapable of doing that. They're not even capable of acknowledging their role. So you're never going to get an apology. So it doesn't require the other person's participation. Now, what forgiveness actually is. So it's a choice to stop carrying it in your own system. It's a nervous system reset, and because resentment keeps us in fight and flight. So here's the thing. It's an identity. And within that identity, we start to dysregulate and we loop into the pattern. And the reason that we loop is because our mind loves to solve problems. And so whatever happened in the past is a problem. In other words, it doesn't sit well with us, and we loop on it. And we create these looping patterns of thoughts, and they'll come up at any time. You'd be brushing your teeth, and all of a sudden something you didn't think about that your mom said 15 years ago, you're pissed right off. You're brushing your teeth, dude. It's not even happening now. And here we go. And this is the way the mind works. Now, I've explained before about the mind with the way that ego works with it, our identity. And the mind is the tool that our ego uses to keep us identifying in those patterns. The pain body, the experience of holding the emotional traumas and dramas of it, is insidious. It feeds off of itself, like attracts like. So if we have resentment, we've got hurt, we've got pain, then it will bump up, it'll agitate the mind. So we get resentment agitates up, the mind starts to loop on resentment, the old story comes up, and it feeds. All of a sudden we've got a fresh new feeling of a resentment, emotion, hurt, pain, whatever, feeding into the pain body. And so the two of them work together to have their feeding patterns. And that's why it works. Our job is to let it go, because if we can let it go out of the pain body, then that's one less thing to agitate the mind, to bring in the thought again, to have a new emotion come on. And so it's not unusual if I'm doing energy work that we will get what we call nesting. So I'll like remove an emotion of resentment from 23, a emotion of resentment from 41, a emotion of resentment, and they'll all be in a similar place in the body or affecting a similar place in our life. That is normal, because like attracts like. And so the really interesting thing is, you might say to me, I don't know. Nothing really happened when I was 41 though. And I'm going to say maybe, okay, but when you were 41, were you looping through the memories of what had happened at 23? And if you were, and it was really alive and well, we might have had a whole nother emotion come in and embed in. And so this is one of the reasons why it's so important to forgive, because we actually create more and more and more of the same, creating more density in our body. The density in our body feels heavy, feels exhausting. It feels like we're just too fucking tired, and it can create depression, shame, guilt, all sorts of things come underneath this. And the way that we release those things is to start letting go. And so the forgiveness is really the act of letting go. And the act of letting go is really what healing is. Healing isn't fixing a wound. You're not damaged. You're not broken. There's no magical, energetic surgery that you need. This is about you releasing something. Everything sorts itself out. You release the wound, the block, the obstacle, everything shifts into the place. So we keep releasing to make that space so that we can get lighter and lighter and lighter, and we can have greater clarity. So density keeps us heavy, keeps us foggy. When we get rid of that stuff, we get clarity, we get a lightness, we get joy, and we start to change not only the energetics, the frequency, but we even change our physical body, the physical experience. So it's the nervous system gets to reset itself because it's not dealing with this thing that's not natural. It's normal, but it ain't natural. I feel like that should be my new tagline. And then the reclaiming of the power. I won't keep paying the bill for what you did. And so there gets to be this place where we need to let this go, not only for, that looping that's going in, but it's also the roles that we play in it. And we often we ignore that part. So for me, for a long time, I looped in the pattern of my first marriage, which was extraordinarily abusive. If you haven't heard me talk about it, my divorce, I was married at 18, divorced at 20. Grounds of divorce were physical, mental, emotional, and sexual cruelty. And I'd lost 5 pregnancies by the time I was 20, and then I went into hiding for 2 years. And he was a sociopath, and I carried those baggages all the way till I was about 40. And about 40 years old, I started this deep dive journey of letting go, and where I really started to do some heavy release work. And so the problem is there's the forgiveness for him for his role in it. He was angry and resentful and doing his things. I would be more of understanding that I was just there. If it had been another woman, he would have behaved the same way. There was nothing about this was about me. It was about him. The other part I had to let go of and forgive, though, was me. I had to forgive me for getting into that relationship. I had to forgive me for staying in that relationship. I had to forgive me and not just staying once, but staying the whole entire time. And it was important because for me to take credit for leaving, I had to take responsibility for getting into it and staying in it. And so forgiveness was allowing me to understand, like, yes, that did happen. I did the best I could with what I had. He needs to pay his own wounds. That's about him. I don't need to hold on to my anger and resentment for him to be punished. He will do that for himself. Heaven and hell live right here on earth between our ears, really within the whole body. Welcome to your pain body. Hell and suffering is the experience of our pain body. He has his, he will punish himself until he can heal and let this go, which I wish for him, because if he does it, it means he won't hurt anybody else. My job is to let go of my shit so I don't hurt other people, because those resentment, those hurts they live in me. So that's what I'm going to spew out as well. And that's the importance of us letting go. So this is what it really is. It's reclaiming our power. It's choosing sovereignty so your past doesn't get to dictate your present. And this is important. We don't have to hold on to fear to make sure we're never hurt again. We don't have to hold on to resentment to make sure we don't get into a bad relationship. We can just carry the wisdom. I promise you. I got in more relationships with dysfunctional people because I hadn't let that go. Once I started doing the work, done. No dysfunctional relationships like that anymore, because I have the wisdom. I see behaviors and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to pass. Not just in romance, but like in friendships and family, I'm like, yeah, hard pass. Not acceptable behavior. And I can do that because I've let it go. There's not a wound to bump within me anymore. And so, but why is it hard? Because the problem here is, like, we know this, we have it here, but how do we really embody it? And so understanding our ego, wants the repayment, it wants justice, and it wants fairness. And that's the inner child in us. You did something bad, so something bad should happen to you. I did something good should happen to me. That's the inner child in us. And so we need to release these pieces of it. But our ego holds on, because if I hold on to it, then I either remain a victim or I remain a survivor. Either way, I'm identified. And that's how the ego exists, is through identification. Forgiveness can also feel like losing when we've been hurt. And so we don't realize it's actually an empowerment process. And so we think like, oh, I'm losing. I'm saying that it was okay. Not at all. That's just a story that we say to not go through the discomfort, because it's uncomfortable to do the process. And so we stay in the discomfort of where we are rather than moving through the discomfort to get out of it. And so it's like we're stuck in this mire and this sludge, and we're just standing there, still stuck in it. But if we moved, it'll take some effort, but we could actually get out. And that is the piece that we don't move through, because it's new, it's uncomfortable, it's an unknown. And so for safety and survival, we're like, I can survive right here in this muck. I know how to survive in muck. I know how to survive as a survivor, as a victim. I know how to exist here. I don't know how to exist on the shore. And so in that discomfort of like, I don't know how to be happy, we will stay where we are. And that is part of why it's so hard, is because it's new. It's an unknown for us. And then we confuse forgiveness with reconciliation, and we get stuck. I can promise you, my forgiveness of what has happened in my past does not mean I will be in a relationship with any single one of my exes. So this is not what that's about. Being abused by people, being gaslit, being, narcissistic relationships, even with friends, with family. Yeah, I'm good. I can forgive you and understand that you are a wounded being and you need, to heal. You need to go through your journey. That does not mean I need to be part of it. So we do not need to reconcile to forgive. We can wish somebody peace and hold our ground and feel stable and secure within ourselves and let all of these pieces go. And then the practical steps. So how do we do it? And this became the question that came today, is how do we move through these things? And so, first we have to name the pain honestly. And so we don't bypass, which most of us want to do. And so we need to become aware of the wound itself, aware of the anger, the hurt, the resentments, that you can journal it, you can talk it, you can think it through, you can do whatever way you like to do, visualize, find your process. This is why I love brain dumping. And then we say the unfiltered truth on paper. So again, it can be like we journal it out. I wrote a story about my ex-husband, and then I actually hired a psychologist because the story was too dark to bring it into my loved ones' lives. And so I hired a psychologist to sit with me for about 4 hours while I read the story of it to her. She caught all my little holes, and then when she left, I burned the letter and everything to do with him, and did finally at the end did the one thing I never thought I could do, which was I wished him peace. So if it's a big one, we can burn it, we can wish somebody peace, we can go through some ritual processes of this. The big key here is we want to become aware of it, feel the emotion and let ourselves feel the ickiness of it, of all of it. Let the emotion rise, witness it, and let it dissipate. Think like a cloud. Once it comes up, we get this big cloud, and then the steam, it just dissipates. And so allowing things to release and let go is how we literally release and let go. And then using breath work or a ritual, like I said, burn, bury. People will use water, whatever feels good. I've seen people, let it float away on the ocean. You got to pick your choices. What feels good for you? I've done all of the different ones depending on the timeline of my life and what feels safe and good in my own body. So what ritual will feel good for you? And it doesn't have to be the one you've always used. You can explore that. What feels good for me today? And let yourself go in there. And then anchoring into your body's freedom signal. So, how does it feel to put the weight down? And so here's all this density. And if I let this rise and I release it, one way we can do it is we go back in timelines. And so this is what I did with releasing the wound with body dysmorphia, is I looked back in my timeline and went through each person that had made comments about my body, went all the way back into my childhood, realized that in my childhood, it was actually witnessing comments being made to my mom, and then going through that, and then not stopping there, but then looking at the people who said them and seeing their own ignorance. And so once I could see that, I could see they were doing the best they could with what they had. Doesn't mean it was okay. It just was what it was. So I could let them go. And then I could go through my mom and I could witness her pain, her suffering, her struggles, her insecurities. And I could release her and wish her peace. And then I could come back in timeline and go through my ex-mother-in-law who made a comment about thick ankles. I could go through my ex-husband who made a comment about, my weight when I was pregnant. I could go through all these pieces and I can see their see their pain, and I could release them. I forgive you. I see the pain that you are in, and I just start releasing and letting go and letting go and letting go. And then finally I can come back to myself and put this down, and I can release this burden that I've been carrying. And then we want to somatically notice what that feels like to be able to breathe again. To soften into the tongue, to soften into the throat, to let our shoulders relax, to place this piece down and say, I release you. I forgive you. I forgive me for carrying it for so freaking long. I forgive myself, not just for being there, but for holding it this whole time. And so then what does that feel like to put the weight down? And we just repeat this as needed as we go through each bump. And they get a lot better, I promise you, as they move through. All of a sudden you're reacting very differently to an almost identical situation 2 years later because you put it down, and it's like, oh, now I'm just dealing with my values. I'm no longer dealing with the wound. I'm not trying to create boundaries around my wounds. Now I have boundaries around my values. That's what we look like when we're in alignment. And then the wins. So the wins of forgiveness. So why bother? Well, because our nervous system wins. We're no longer in hypervigilance. We're no longer going through all of these manic behaviors that we can all loop into. Our nervous system gets to rest. The warrior gets to rest. Energy comes back for what matters now. Instead of putting all of this energy, all this effort into all this resentment, which are like little holes, and we're just leaking out vital energy everywhere. Instead, when we put it down, we start having a whole bunch of energy to live the life that we truly desire. Our relationships can evolve without bitterness, even at a distance. So we can start to evolve ourselves and evolve these relationships so that when we bump into somebody, we can genuinely say, oh my gosh, how are you doing? And you've just let it go. It's not even there. You can just be good with it. I have a couple friends who are so incredibly beautiful at doing this. They inspire me on how great they are at literally just oh yeah, right, that happened. Yeah, it's all good. And they're sincere, they mean it, they've let it go. And so this is the beauty of what we can have is we can, and again, it doesn't mean we have to be in relationship with them. It just means that when we see them, we're not perpetuating that pain anymore. And you can stop living on autopilot from our wounds. So that's that boundary setting we like to put around our wounds rather than dealing with the wounds and having our boundaries around our values. And our boundaries are far more about us holding our boundaries than they are about the other people. And then freedom, sovereignty re-anchored in present time. So as we let these things go, we no longer live in the past and we start to live in the glorious present future or present moment. We live in the eternal now. These are the gifts that are available to us when we finally release and we finally let go. So forgiveness isn't letting them off the hook. It's letting yourself off the hook. You didn't even know you were hanging on. So today, what are you ready to let go of? What wound have you been trying to protect? What are you ready to release? Is it something to do with your parents? Is it something to do with an ex? Is it something somebody said to you? What are you ready to let go of? What are you ready to give yourself freedom from? I am excited for you. I'm excited for all of us. I get excited for myself every single day. Every morning, this is where I do my journal dumps and the question comes in, what can I let go of today? What is an obstacle that is interfering with this life that I'm trying to create? What's interfering with me living at my full capacity? Show me. Now, only ask it if you really want it, but I'm excited for all of us. I'm excited for this world when we do our work because everybody benefits. I hope you have a fabulous Thursday, and I can't wait to chat with you next time. Brightest of blessings.